Gentlemen, welcome to another commentary done by Diggity. This is going to be Flash versus Rush. Upper right hand corner, we got Flash starting as the blue Terran. Bottom left hand corner, we have Rush starting as the white Terran. This is going to be on Eclipse, so 1v1 map. And Flash coming back. So oftentimes players will go to do their military service in Korea, and you take any time off Brood War, and quite often what ends up happening is your skills languish. We'll see if that ends up being the case for Flash as he returns. If anybody can come back and regain top form, though, it would be Flash. Jaedong obviously has had some success in his return, but hasn't returned to the same level of prominence he did previously. There are a lot of question marks as whether or not Flash is going to be able to return and once again dominate the scene as he previously did. Also, I know I haven't produced content in a while. Mostly I haven't had stuff to do. If you want to see any particular replays of any pros or whatnot, I'll try to hunt them down for you. It's hard to find them. I do have a source now, so if there's anyone you want to see, let me know in the comments. I'm also thinking of doing kind of a series of stuff covering, I want to call it like Hasu League graduates, cover some of the Bisu, not Bisu League, the Hasu League players that went on to the league, Gosu League up above, or some, I'm trying to think if anyone made it into Pro League, maybe Machine did, but cover some of their games as they went forward and advanced deeper into the BSL brackets. Anyway, looks like we are going to see a barracks opener rather than anything too crazy as far a going command center first would be absolutely insane on Eclipse. I'm sure someone's done it on the ladder or something like that as a meme, but generally it's almost asking to get killed in that situation. But both players putting that barracks alongside the ramp to create a little bit of a blockade, but also to make sure that they can lift it off as soon as possible to get that quick scouting information in their opponent's base. I've actually been thinking about this and I'm wondering what the fastest time is to get the barracks into your opponent's base to get that scouting information, because that could actually be huge and could really provide a lot of timing. As I'm wondering if both of these players at the pro level have kind of figured out the mechanics of all that and know timing flight paths. A little bit of a faster scout here from Flash, so he's moving that initial SCV out to get some scouting information. In the meantime, Rush moving his SCV out, but it looks like he's going to go ahead and go for a barracks into command center build, and he's actually bravely skipping the Marine initially to do so. Looks like Flash is doing the same on the opposite side. I think Flash, though, is going to end up slightly, ever so slightly economically behind because he has that earlier SCV scout, but he is going to be able to confirm the command center, is going to be able to walk up and also confirm. I think he might have even slid up and see that barracks producing the Marine, so instead going to try to get a little bit of harassment to buy some of that time back. In the meantime, the SCV is going to be untouched opposite corner. We do have that. Kind of curious the timing of these Marines. Looks like the Marine's going to be out a lot earlier for Rush. Maybe Flash was hoping he could skip that initial Marine, but first Marine out, going to be able to blockade the ramp. Flash got a good amount of scouting information, wasn't able to deny the information that it was a command center first build, but both players have a good idea of what they're up to, so it's mirrored builds up to this stage with a very slight economic lead to Rush overall. Second Marine, and it looks like a third Marine now being produced from Rush. Rush moving forward with those Marines, and Flash pocketing that SCV bottom right hand corner. Rush also keeping that SCV active towards the front. The barracks is lifted after just 2 Marines for Flash, so this is going to be 3 Marines versus 2 potentially if Rush moves forward. Right now he might want to hold position to keep that SCV back. Flash checking the position. I think he saw the 3 Marines, that barracks pressing forward. And actually, it'll be interesting here. Rush now moving out with these 3 Marines. Those 3 Marines plus in the SCV actually poking and seeing just 2 Marines on the front. This is, with this SCV out in the front and Flash able to sneak along the side and walk his way all the way in, so that SCV getting a lot of scouting information otherwise, able to confirm 2 factories to start. But this is going to give Rush a very strong early aggressive attack force against these 2 Marines, and it looks like Flash going to try to make up the difference by going for a bunker, and that's 100 minerals he's having to sink there. So now the 2 Marines going to end up in the bunker. Rush has confirmed that there's a base behind this. He's going to end up, he doesn't have the scouting information that Flash has to follow, but this is going to open up. It's kind of interesting. He's going to get the early scouting information, but is going to get denied later scouting information potentially, as that barracks, if it doesn't want to burn down, is going to have to adjust the flight path more towards that 6 o'clock location, which might end up maybe just hover over that edge, but otherwise he's not going to be able to get into the base with a lot of health. We're seeing that stereotypical 3 barracks opener, but we have, or sorry, 3 barracks, 3 factory opener, but we're seeing 4 factories down from Flash with the machine shop, so he's going to have that production edge, and maybe that will help him make up the difference of that 100 minerals spent I guess it's technically 50 minerals after the additional marine. But the additional minerals spent on that bunker, which did put Flash just slightly behind. You can see Rush is actually ahead in supply right this second. The 2 vultures coming out very, very rapidly. I think that's also a factor. But mine first upgrade. SCV returning to base. I think that was the scouting SCV out in the field. And we're actually seeing a 5th factory down now for Flash. So Flash getting extremely aggressive to start is going to try to go for a flood of vultures. You can see all that damage that Barracks is taking in the south. In the meantime, the Barracks for Rush going to be able to push up and should at least be able to let's see if the Marine's actually exiting. That won't keep that Barracks back for long. And now you got the vultures creeping forward from Rush to go ahead and get some mine coverage towards that front. But that 5th factory just about finished. Let's kind of look at this for Rush moving in. So he's just now, is he going to get the edge of it? Sees that 4th factory, but hasn't moved in further, critically hasn't moved in further, to see that 5th factory. At the very least, he knows he has to get into a defensive slot, so dropping some mines to that while he can, because otherwise going to get flooded. And probably it looks like, yeah, is he going to produce a siege tank? That's needs some of the, or maybe a bunker or something else. He has to know that he's at an economic disadvantage currently, and so needs to get in more of a defensive posture. Academy just finishing, and look at this. So Flash moving out, but he sending most of the vultures along that left-hand side, but I think sending several of the vultures along the south. I don't know if Rush recognizes the potential deficit he's in, because this looks like more than a control group. Yeah, so that's a control group plus 5 factories worth of vultures follow-up. So right now he's down 1. He's got 3 Marines to try to make up the gap. Has blockaded himself in. Now you can see those additional vultures starting to move in, and Flash pulling the trigger, moving up. The Marines very quickly getting taken care of. Great focus fire on Flash's side. You can just see them individually getting picked off, and Rush losing the battle at the natural expansion. He does have a siege tank making his way down. SCV's pulling off the line to get some solid damage on those vultures. That's going to push them back, and maybe that with the siege tank will be sufficient. But in the meantime, Flash needs to get some SCV kills or something else to equalize the... He stopped some SCV production for quite some time. Now getting SCV kills as only the siege tank remains. He's trying to stay near the ramp because he's going to have to hold that ramp. Otherwise, he could have vultures inside of his base wreaking havoc. More SCVs getting killed at that natural expansion. And oh, Flash actually pulling back for some reason. I'm shocked he actually didn't dive into the main with the vultures there. Instead, maybe wanted to make sure the mines got planted and he could press in a defensive situation, maybe realizing that, first of all, with all the mines planted and winning those initial forays, he's actually evened up the worker count. All of a sudden has a worker lead. He's got 5 factories. Dropping the second machine shop is going to have a production lead, and then maybe we'll be able to secure a 3rd more rapidly than Rush overall. Rush is just now adding a 4th factory. He's also dropping command center to try to go for a quick 3rd, but right now does not have map control, is a bit behind economically, is dropping his second machine shop to try to keep equalized on that tank count. One advantage for Rush is getting that siege tank out earlier, and also it looks like continuously producing siege tanks is going to give him the overall at least mech advantage as far as close reinforcement location siege advantage. We'll see. He's going to need some comsat out though, because those mines are dangerously close, and is probably going to want to clear there. We do have some mines, trio of mines being planted at the 9 o'clock location to deny that. I think a Marine, this is cute, a Marine sent to the north to maybe do some mine clearage right there. We have the armory being dropped to the natural expansion for Flash to move the upgrades. This is, wow, that was really cute from Rush's part. So moving the siege tanks forward, trying to do some mine clearage. I'm wondering if he's just going to, yeah, just utilizing a comsat really fast to go ahead and clear that out, making his way towards the 9 o'clock. Flash mirroring it with a lot of his vultures, dropping a lot of mines as well. And he's got 3 siege tanks that are moving out to reinforce towards that location, while he's going to go take that 1 o'clock location. So Rush sieging up, protecting that 3rd, floating that out, comsatting, is going to be able to drop that. That's going to be finished a lot earlier, as Flash hasn't even started construction. But we have a lot of vultures and some siege tanks now moving forward towards that 9 o'clock location to potentially dive in, deny it, or maybe create a siege wedge between the 9 o'clock to allow vultures, assuming Flash can win this corner, to create a wedge and push vultures in after the fact. Initial shots taken, 2 siege tanks going up against a slew of vultures, 3 siege tanks along that rear in attack range, and getting a lot of hits. So it looks like Flash going to be able just able to punch through, is driving a sizable wedge, and enough vultures are here that they're pushing the siege tanks back, able to wipe out one of the siege tanks on their own, 2 siege tanks trailing, and Flash continuing to push this despite the distance reinforcement location. I think this is a factor of having fewer factories. It looks like there have been 5 factories now, but Flash now going to siege short. Now those vultures pushing into that 9 o'clock. I have no idea how those OCVs managed to sneak in there in the meantime, but they're fighting for their lives, going to try to pull off the line. That is going to be further damage. So where Rush was economically behind is getting a sliver of resources in between. He has lost a good amount of control on the front. Siege tanks getting cleared out by Rush's vultures, and the siege tank starting to push against that, but Flash not holding back, continuing to push forward and try to keep that wedge active to deny that third base. He's got his base about halfway constructed at this stage. This is keeping things economically even for the time being. 1 siege tank remains, 2 vultures versus 1, it looks like, in the short field. Some mines being dropped underneath. A nice pick off of those mines by Flash to keep that siege tank active, and the vultures diving in with no protection from Rush behind. Finally sending out some more reinforcements, and Flash really not keeping... He's just continuously reinforcing, is not giving Rush any breathing room. More vultures moving in, forcing a lift off of that command center at the 9 o'clock. That command center now finished, and the SCV starting to transfer for Flash. So now the economic lead moving back. Some Wraith out in the field, trying to evict the siege tanks. A Goliath there just in the nick of time. Look at that timing from Flash, and that's going to be push them back. I don't know what I don't want to move away from the attack battle because there's just things happening constantly, but the Wraith look like they're not going to bother upgrading cloaking. The Goliath having trouble. Some beautiful micro from Rush, just getting on the edge of the siege tank range from his end to allow some additional hits to once again try to open up that wedge. But right now Flash is mining on 3 bases versus his 2. He needs to open up that field in a hurry, and Flash constantly sending in the vultures on any re-siege. Finally, between some defense of that vulture and that Wraith, wow, that siege tank exiting with 1 health, moving back out, but Flash not quitting yet, moving along that topside lake artifact and getting another siege position. Unfortunately, that Goliath has been taken out, but so that Wraith going to be able to get some hits, but some SCVs under fire as they're transferring. Vultures scooting in, again dropping a mine. So continuous denial here from Flash. This is giving him a continual edge. The longer he denies this 9 o'clock base and is mining at his 1 o'clock, the better situation he's in. He's actually dropping the science facility. +1 weapons is finished for both players. Looks like it finished, I assume, fairly close to the same time on both ends. And it's interesting, oftentimes you'd see more action here on Eclipse, but because of Flash's aggression, it's just been constant. Looks like Flash has built some Wraith of his own to go ahead and counter and provide at least a degree of aerial spotting for his troops. And where I thought he might try to cut the map in half, instead continuing to press up to that 9 o'clock and get what damage he can. An SCV on the forward field trying to keep those siege tanks alive. I don't see the Wraith out on the field for Rush anywhere. Try to keep an eye. It looks like, so we have Wraith being built, but curious where they are on location. No Goliath as well, so some siege tanks getting picked off. 3 Wraith in the air. It looks like some counter mines from Rush, able to pick off some siege tanks. He has established some mining there at the 9 o'clock, so worker count 5 in Flash's advantage. Goliath finally pushing up to mitigate that air threat, and Flash still keeping his siege tanks rather than a defensive position right on the edge. But look at this, Rush not being dissuaded in the slightest, moving up to go ahead and grab his 10 o'clock expansion to maybe get an economic lead, but having some major trouble in the form of aerial control, and might end up losing his 9 o'clock as a result of this, because siege tanks popping in underneath now that they've been spotted. Some SCVs pulling off the line, trying to defend and retake this territory. Rush, the SCVs attacking, getting a siege tank with some splash, and that actually might, those SCVs are heroes, I'll tell you what, because that probably prevented that 9 o'clock base from getting completely breached. Now a Goliath able to push up, taking on the Wraith wholesale, and the siege tanks able to clear things up. And so that's going to, first of all, protect the 9 o'clock and also open up that 10 o'clock base for Rush. immediately finally cycling out a Vulture top left to make sure that that hasn't been grabbed. Now Flash needs to grab a base of his own in a hurry. Take a look at what's going on back here. Additional Vultures scooting out. I'm wondering if this 10 o'clock has been scouted as of yet. A control tower being dropped for potential drop follow-ups from Rush. He's sitting at 6, looks like 7 factories, finally getting his 3rd machine shop. A bunch of siege tanks now moving top left to allow that 4th base to be constructed. But once again, just a slight edge to Rush overall. Supply counts are very near even. Rush getting a good look at all of these troops with that Wraith. And so is going to know exactly where Flash's army is. In the meantime, also checking that bottom right to make sure additional expansion wasn't stuck somewhere else in the map. We have siege tanks finally defending that 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock gap. And a single mine left, and there is an SCV here. Finally, a Wraith versus Wraith able to wipe things out. But this is unfortunate because Flash taking a big risk here and trying to take a command center top left. That mine, I believe that mine is going to provide enough information, so Vulture's going to be able to pop up, and that's going to have to be a canceled base, and Flash not going to be able to counterattack. So yeah, there's some Vultures up here, but forcing that was a big hit in resources, and right now it is a game of just razor thin margins both directions. Flash sending some troops. This is going to get spotted by the mines towards that natural expansion, maybe wanting to go for maybe attempt to make another wedge towards that natural. Might have some trouble doing so. Now going to go for another command center bottom right, trying to sneak that. We'll see if that gets comp-setted as well. Very risky. So Flash going to try to use these units on the high ground, I assume, as a defense against Rush's troops, and rely on the fact that he's more going to defend the top left territory. So effectively use a potential defense on the high ground to open up that bottom right-hand base. SCV's now transferring to the 10 o'clock, but now movements from Rush. Vulture's able to sneak in and find some stranded siege tanks. Flash moving forward upon that, attacking that natural expansion. I think this is still going to end up working out for Rush, though, because this is a closer reinforcement point. That base is going to get shut down, maybe eliminated. SCV's getting caught on the forward lines, and also this is high ground defense from Rush, and I think he should be able to follow things up, but a drop from Flash at the 9 o'clock location going to be able to kill some additional SCVs. There is a Goliath there to provide some defense, but with this and some additional dropships, I'm wondering if I missed additional drop attempt at the natural expansion. So the Vultures looks like they've managed to mostly defend. However, that base in the top of the map has been wiped out, so Flash now hurting for resources comparatively. He's got to get some damage done. He has managed to take out a lot of able to get the Goliath and some SCVs with that. So now Rush down to 45 SCVs, but I don't think Flash is in a position where he can utilize that SCV advantage, and continuing to drop here. He's got 3 dropships here. Finally, a Wraith able to wipe them out, actually able to take out 2, so drop control maybe being pushed out of his hands, but Flash has managed to create a siege tank wedge at the natural expansion. Kind of curious because he maybe didn't need the dropships there. Some Wraith there for defense. However, Rush is still mining at the 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock, and there's still no SCVs in the bottom right-hand corner. A counter drop now from Rush, discovering that. And it looks like a siege tank and a Vulture still going to proceed. Also moving troops to swing around to overwhelm that 1 o'clock. And that is potentially going to be the last mining base, as that bottom right is going to get wiped out by that siege tank and Vulture combination. So Rush, with a sudden counterattack, has managed to get a Vulture into that northern location. Let's see if he can continue to siege from there. It looks like the drop at the natural expansion getting cleaned up. Not a lot else happening there. But with this, also Rush counterattacking, moving some SCVs off the line and opening up his natural. And with that, Flash calling GG, with the 2-1 combo, wiping out the bases. Rush able to overcome. And what a game. If this is what we can see for the upcoming ASL, it is going to be a grand ASL indeed. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Give a like, subscribe, comments of what you want to see moving forward. Thank you guys for listening.